It's 6 p.m. here and probably noon in New York or 9 a.m. in Los Angeles or any other hour, whatever the place you are right now. So thank you very much for joining in. I'm really happy to show you for the first time ever Odyssey, or actually the first beta version that we started to send. And I'm very sorry it's taking quite a long time to send all the licenses to the beta testers, because at the moment we were supposed to have a user account on a website that would give you an access to your license through the user account, but it's not ready yet. So we have to send all the licenses by hand, and it's taking ages. So I'm really sorry if it's taking much longer time than it should be, but well, don't worry, it's coming. Just so for your information, just in case, so as soon as you will receive your license, on the Discord server, we have a Discord server on for Praxinos, and recently we have opened an Odyssey beta channel that is public. So even if you're not a beta tester, you can still read the conversation, that's fine. And in this area, you will have the possibility to create dedicated posts and threads. If you have any questions, if you have any issues, really don't be shy, post your messages here. And so here for the first demo, I'm using here the YouTube platform, because I think it's great to have to touch many people at the same time, to have a large audience, because sadly Discord is limited to 25 people at the same time if I do a stream video. In the end, since we have a lot of beta testers who applied for the beta program, I think in the end it would be much easier to do monthly catch up on YouTube, if you're fine with. And between every big live stream would be interesting to have a so tiny, for instance, you can see here we have a live channel right there. So if you have any issue, you need to show something, to say, I would like to know why this thing is not working well, or I've done something really great with Odyssey and I would like to show you what it is. We can use here the live channel on the Discord to share screen, to have audio and everything. So we'll try to make this beta program as vivid as possible. All right. And so, okay, let's dive into Odyssey. First of all, something I would like to show you is something named the Praxinos Launcher. This is the platform that will help you to manage your license. First of all, for the beta version, everything will be managed right here. You have the key to download the beta version, and then you will have the license that will be, you'll have a ticket to enter here to activate your license. So things you will know, everything will be explained into a PDF to guide you how you can install the software. But yeah, they will be in 2 steps. You have to enter the beta key to download Odyssey, and then you will have to activate Odyssey right there. So you know. And so once you will do all this process, Odyssey will be opened like this. So I enable Odyssey like this. You can see it has its own logo and its own splash screen. I have to wait a little bit because it's still based on Unreal Engine. So the tiny, maybe I will do a little story behind Odyssey, so everyone has the same basics. So Odyssey is based on Unreal Engine. It's developed by Praxinos, and I am one of the person working for Praxinos. And the company was created almost 5 years ago, with the idea to create a 2D animation software powered by Unreal Engine, and which was quite an ambitious project, to be honest. And we split the development of Odyssey into tiny modules that were turned into plugins as a proof of concept from Odyssey. And so that's why you can find on the Unreal Engine marketplace different plugins done by Praxinos, like Iliad and Epos. Iliad was a proof of concept to be able to be compatible with graphic tablets, to create images in Unreal Engine, to also have a brush engine, to have like gouache or watercolor engine, brushes and things like this. And so that's the first plugin, Iliad. And then we have the second plugin, Epos, where another proof of concept to see how can we manage 2D and 3D into the same environment, managing cameras, managing key poses, and all the things. And in Odyssey, contrary to Iliad and Epos that are plugins for Unreal Engine, which require an Unreal Engine to be installed, here with Odyssey, it's a standalone software. So you don't have to install anything else. Iliad, Epos, Unreal Engine, everything is enabled by default. And you also have all the different specific features we have developed for Odyssey that doesn't exist in Iliad and Epos. Okay, especially everything related to the animation, obviously. Let me read quickly the chat because I can see Odyssey is a standalone software. Oh yeah, that's Thomas. Galandil is one of my colleagues, and so is Animation for Work, who's Clea, my other colleague. So since they are here, I will let them handle the chat so I can focus on my demo, right? Okay, so you see I have just opened Odyssey. Just like when you open Unreal Engine, you know, we have the templates where you can select, for instance, if you want to create automotive, or if you want to create a video game, or architecture, or virtual production, or whatever. Here, since Odyssey is targeted to mostly animation industry and more specifically to the animators, we wanted the templates to be made for animation, for animators. And so that's why instead of automotive, architecture, etc., you will have templates like 2D drawing, storyboarding, 2D animation in a 3D environment, and 3D tools. So depending on what templates you're using, you will have different option here. So all templates are not finished right now. I think there's still a few things to change, but basically you have different templates for whatever you want to create. Also, contrary to Unreal Engine, you don't have the option to create C++ project. I think there is one or two C++ projects remaining, mostly for developing process actually for us, but that's not really the idea right now to make C++ project. More blueprints which are easier to handle. So for instance, I don't know, I'm gonna take a 2D drawing, for instance, or let's see a 2D animation, let's see. And I'm gonna choose the full HD timeline, for instance. And then I have the possibility to choose the directory where my project is going to be created. So I'm going to say it's a game project, and I'm going to name it animation. Oopsie, microphone remain in place. Yeah, animation Odyssey. Yeah, and I create. And so again, just like when we create an Unreal Engine project, we still have a few seconds to wait, a few minutes to wait for the project to be compiled. I mean, especially for the shaders to be compiled. And yeah, the install is about between 12 and 20 gigabytes. I think that if I remember well, when you download the project, when you download Odyssey, it's 12 gigabytes, and then when it's installed on your software, on your PC, it's 20 gigabytes, something like this. It's still much lighter than Unreal Engine installation that is more like 50, 60 gigabytes, and even more if you add Visual Studio for as a compiler, and if you also enable all the different package you can have on Unreal Engine. Here it's much easier and much lighter. Okay, so here we have the classical timeline with Odyssey. Of course, as I said, it's still a beta version. I'm going to show you everything I can on Odyssey, but just so you know, we can still experience crash during the beta, during the demo as well, since it's still a work in progress. But I really hope you're gonna love what I'm going to show you. And since we don't really need my face anymore, I'm going to hide the camera so you can better see the interface. All right. So at the moment, the animation is quite simple. It's not very fancy. All we have right now is like several layers. You can manage the layers right there, where you can create several raster images like this and create a bunch of frames like this. So I'm gonna delete this one. Regarding animation, really simple. So I'm going to do the classical bouncing ball. That is probably the only thing I can barely animate. And then you can see by default the light table is already enabled, so when I go to the next frame I can already see it by transparency. As well, the light table also is quite simple at the moment. Actually, everything related to the animation at the moment is quite simple, and the idea during this beta, the beta will last at least till the end of the year, and the idea during these next 4 months is really to get all the ideas and all the feedback to improve the 2D animation part, because even if we have or we are experienced in the 2D animation industry, we think there's still a big room for improvement. And since we're building something new, if you have any specific idea of something you would really like to have and that doesn't exist in other software, that's the moment to require something, to ask for something. Please do use Discord or the YouTube channel as well. Okay, I was mentioning the light table. So as I said, right now the light table is very simple. What you can do is select how many frames you want to see and the opacity of those frames. That's all. There's no shift and trace option. There's no fancy things that you can have. You don't have flipping options right there. That is quite common in other software. But as I said, that's typically the kind of thing we would really like to add in the next couple of weeks. All right, so let's keep doing the animation. So again, with the light table, I can decide to see more images. Yeah. There. As I said, I barely can animate a bouncing ball, but at least it gives you the idea of how it works. Yeah, and since I'm really bad at keeping the ratio of the objects, I like to make them vanishing away. Yeah. And so, you can disable the light table and then we can play it. And since we already have a few frames after that, it's still moving away. Okay. Obviously, I can also play with the duration of each instances of each image. Very basic. And so far, that's all. For instance, there is another software where you can play with past behaviors or pre-behaviors, where you can decide to have still images or play in loop, or that goes ping pong or something like this. At the moment, that's not possible. That is inside the big package of everything we would like to improve in the 2D animation part of Odyssey. By the way, you can see that right now the interface really doesn't involve 3D at all. We are into a whole 100% dedicated interface for 2D animation, nothing more. So regarding the 2D animation, okay, now let's see if I run this not into this project, because this project is quite empty, so I better use something with more elements in it. Where is it? Right there. Which is also a great occasion for me to show you that exactly like Unreal Engine, projects in Odyssey are made of many tiny U assets of different folders and images like this, of U assets, sorry, not images. And the structure of the files and the folders are exactly the same, which means you still have the possibility to, Odyssey and Unreal Engine remain compatible. That's something I think is really important to keep the compatibility between both engines. So it means you can easily migrate environments, characters, 3D characters, whatever, from Unreal Engine to Odyssey. And it works the other way around, because we have the same the same features, almost the same features, obviously, because since Odyssey is lighter than Unreal Engine, it means, I mean, it's not magic. It's lighter because we switch off, we disable many different plugins that didn't make sense in Odyssey. But all, in our opinion, everything that was really interesting for animation purpose, like landscape tools, foliage, modeling, everything, these tools still exist. So if, for instance, you have a mesh in Odyssey and you decide to change the modeling, for instance, using Unreal Engine modeling tools, and you decide to send it back to an Unreal Engine project, you still have the possibility to migrate this, which is really the idea is to keep the compatibility between both software. So, the only thing at the moment that is not compatible between Odyssey and Unreal Engine is the animation asset. Because the 2D animation asset, because it is too specific to Odyssey right now. Maybe later, when we'll have more time and money and people to work on Odyssey, maybe we will. The idea is to create kind of a plugin to make a bridge between Unreal Engine and Odyssey, so you can still see the 2D animations in Unreal Engine, but not editing them. But yeah, at the moment, it's more like on the wish list and not something with an actual release date, obviously. So I showed you how we can actually make the 2D animation in a 2D context. Very simple. We just have these the layer stack and the drawing and the color wheel and the brush wheel and everything. But we can also do 2D animation in a 3D context. It's still, again, very experimental at the moment, but yet it's interesting to see how it works. So here, basically, I have a 3D shape that is just a sphere, and on this sphere, I have a material, we can see here right there, and if I go into the content browser, you can see it's just like in Unreal Engine, I still have a content browser, it's still the same. And into this content browser, I have these animation assets. I have my material with the animation. I have a media texture. And I'm going to open these animation into a level sequence, because we also kept the structure by level sequences. So sorry for the guys who come here and know nothing about Unreal Engine. I'm really sorry, because I'm using specific vocabulary from Unreal Engine users. So please ask on the chat, and the ones who can help you will answer your questions. Sorry. Yeah. So for the idea, the level sequence is in Unreal Engine what helps you to manage all your sequences. So you already have your character, 3D characters, your environments, your lights, and everything, and you can assemble together all these elements and edit sequences for video games or for animation films. So the idea is the same. We will combine 2D animation with the native level sequence in Unreal Engine to, in the end, tell a story. So I'm going to open a level sequence right here, and you see my black sphere turned into something transparent, because opening the level sequence helped me to open actually the animation, which is empty at the moment. It's just an empty animation with no animation at all. And the level sequence makes the connection between the sphere, the 3D mesh, and the animation, which is not existing yet. So that's why I'm opening Iliad right now. And I'm going to open the timeline, because now we see we have two timelines. There is one timeline for the sequencer, and we have one timeline for the actual 2D animation, and we have to work with them both. And again, I'm going to hide my face so you see a little more what's happening on the screen. All right. So for instance, I have the possibility to move here and say, okay, I would like to draw, I don't know, some creature here. And then I have the possibility to use shortcuts to move into the sequencer like this. And so I can see and move like this. So as I said, it's a tiny experimental because here basically I can't see the light table. The light table can only be seen here into the texture area like this, in this 2D viewport, because in the 2D viewport I have all the details I need. You see? You can see the light table and everything because there's no mention of 3D. That's typically the kind of thing that must be improved so we can see the actual light table also in the 3D context. But here it's not the case right now. So, okay, I'm moving on. And in the end, the idea here, I'm animating kind of a tiny bug, but could be also used to animate textures as well. Because since it's applied on a 3D static mesh, it could also actually apply also on a skeletal mesh, but it wouldn't be possible for me to draw on it directly. But at least, I mean, you can, for instance, imagine an animation like a flame or water dripping from a rock or something. That offers many possibilities, actually. And here we go, and then I can play it. And, oops, sorry, that's because the animation is a little too small. Okay. So it will automatically loop it from the sequencer. And enjoy it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little fast, but you understand the idea, obviously. And as I said, I said earlier that we still have the compatibility between Unreal Engine and Odyssey. And here, typically, this nice environment comes from the marketplace. And from the marketplace, I have the possibility to say, I would like to add it into a project made on Odyssey. And when you do so, the marketplace would say, I don't know this version of Unreal Engine. Can you tell me what version of Unreal Engine it is based on? And in this situation, it's still 5.1. The update to 5.2 is planned for pretty soon, actually. And by the way, I'm sorry for the ones who are still waiting for the version of Iliad on 5.2. I don't know, it's taking ages from the marketplace. I'm really sorry. It's actually ready, and we're still waiting for Unreal Engine, for Epic Games to validate the package. I really cross my finger that tonight is going to be finally good. So for this weekend, for the people who already have Epos and Iliad on the marketplace, they will finally have the 5.2 version. So let's cross the finger, pray any god you want, so it can be ready for this weekend. Okay. So basically, in terms of animation, at the moment, it's quite old. There's still, as I said, still a big room for improvement. We have many ideas, and we have many things in our roadmap to improve the 2D animation just as 2D animation in itself, and also in a 3D context. Something else I would like to show you is everything that were added in Odyssey in terms of drawing tools, especially vector-based tools. But let's open first a texture so it will be a little easier to explain this. And after all, I don't even know, since I don't know how much people in the attendees know Odyssey or Unreal Engine in general, I'm going to give kind of a wider explanation of how we can draw in Odyssey. So here it's not an animation, it's just what we call texture 2D. So basically it's just an image that can be applied in many different contexts, can be applied for a static mesh, for a skeletal mesh, can be applied on a foliage, can be applied as a decal being an element that you map on objects. For instance, here we have these tiny flowers. These are decals that are just placed on the walls. And as At the moment, there is still kind of a difference between what you can do in the texture 2D and what you can do in the animation asset. For instance, in the animation asset, if I open the animation asset, we just have raster-based tools, meaning you can just draw with bitmaps, which is nice because we have many fancy brushes, and especially because with Odyssey, so for the one who knows Iliad, the plugin on Unreal Engine, we have by default 75 brushes, and we also have packages, extra packages for brushes that are for sale on the marketplace. Well, on Odyssey, all these brushes will be included by default. You don't have to pay more for these brushes, which means you will have something like hundreds of brushes available by default. And so we can see what they look like. I'm just going to hide this. Add raster image. Make a white background and yeah, create a new raster image. Okay. Oh, I created a folder. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Yeah, much better. So we have many different types of brushes that are available by default. And so brushes are the same whether you are into an animation asset or into a texture asset. That's the same. If you don't know how it works, so contrary to most painting applications, whatever it's Krita or Photoshop or TV Paint or whatever, here it's not just a simple interface where you just change a few slides and then boom, you have your brush. It's much more advanced because we based the brush engine on Blueprint, and Blueprint is a scripting language, another language system, which is quite more advanced compared to other applications, but allow much more things, much more possibilities in terms of results. So for instance, I'm going to add a white background as well. Yep. Raster image. Yep. So here I have these very basic pen brush, very simple, obviously. I will show another one, the paint stain. I like this one because, for instance, when you go to the tip of the texture, it's gonna paint on the other side. And the same when you paint at the bottom, it's gonna paint at the top. That's possible because the Blueprint allows this kind of behavior. You can also have kind of, not exactly procedural brushes, but brushes where you can, when you can define many different ways to apply different stamps and images while you're painting on them. So if I use, for instance, these roses, well, these brushes will allow you to paint flowers, leaves, etc. that are, so the idea is when you just paint a stem, leaves, you have an array of different leaves that are displayed quite randomly. And at the very end, when you drop the stylus, you have a tiny rose at the end. And you also have, by the way, roses that appears just like the leaves randomly like this. And that is possible thanks to Blueprint. So if I show you the blueprint of this brush, is probably one of the most complex of... no, that's sorry. This one can be scary because it's probably one of the most complex of the whole engine. And you have some that are much easier. I think this one, like the classical airbrush, is much easier. You can see how it is. So again, it can look scary, but creating a brush in Blueprint is actually not that complicated as long as you're just open-minded enough to do this. And if you don't like this, if you really don't want to touch that, that's okay, because as I said, you have hundreds of brushes offered by default, and you can just use them. And every brush has what we call exposed parameters, meaning that depending on the brush you're gonna use, you're gonna have different, like for instance, if I use this one, the cotton brush, you're gonna have specific how to say that, parameters that will be available by default. Wait, can I see them? For instance, this one maybe not interesting. Maybe where are they? Tool options. And there we go. Actually, I'm actually lost because I'm trying to find something that, there it is. Sorry. There it is. As I said, so depending on the brush you're going to use, you're going to have exposed parameters that you can easily change. So you don't have to go inside the blueprint if you don't want to change that. I totally understand that. So again, if I take the cartoon bush, for instance, what I can see, so I can change the stamp for the image. I can change the color. I can say, okay, I would like to paint with nuances of purple and green, for instance, and pink, like this. You can change the size of the leaf. You can change the spread. You can change the jitter, so meaning the difference in the color. So you don't have to go within the blueprints. Everything can be made. I mean, every brushes by default have exposed parameters, and even when you work in your team with in a production, inside the production, you have your technical director who can create the specific brushes you will need for the production, and then you don't have to go within the blueprint. You just have to select a bunch of favorite tools, and that's all. You can even, for instance, make brushes where you select. You instead of choosing colors like I did, here I'm choosing colors like this. You can also have like lists of sizes, list of colors, list of the aspect of the stroke. If you want to have something very smooth, or if in the contrary you want to have something more organic, like a crayon. You see. So that's really the kind, you have really so many possibilities in terms of customization. That's really insane. Okay. Yeah, pattern brushes. Yeah, you can really do many patterns, and you even have things that are crazy. For instance, if you love Danish bricks, you can paint with Danish bricks if you want to. It's just totally useless, but I fucking love this brush. Sorry. All right, so this is in terms of brushes. So as I said, whether you paint on a texture or you paint on an animation, it is exactly the same behavior, the same brushes. At the moment, we also have another feature that is at the moment only available for textures, not for animation yet. It's vector-based tool. We also have vector tools. So I'm going to create a vector drawing layer like this. And so you can see the brush selector is now empty because at the moment it's really just classical vector pen brush, I would say. There's no at the moment possibility to do Stellite vector brushes, but again, that's the kind of thing that are into a roadmap, obviously. So the idea is very simple. So you can draw shapes like this. You have different possibilities. For instance, you can decide to be pressure sensitive or not if you don't want to. For instance, in my opinion, I prefer to work without pressure when I draw vector, because later will choose the thickness of my stroke. So if I want to do so, I can select the path stroke like this and say, okay, I would like to edit a little bit my strokes like this, and I would like to change a little bit the thickness depending on what I want to do, for instance. You see? So we can change this. We can also change the angle as well. Here are a few glitches that still need a few fix, but I know it's almost done on this part. Again, you have much more possibility as well. You can move. So people who knows Iliad for a couple of years know these kind of things are not possible basically in Iliad, and I'm very sorry. and it's in Odyssey, as you can see, finally. Can resize and stuff. You can also pan the whole thing. So you have a vector pan and also vector zoom as well, like this, which is really useful. You also have a push option that is really cool because you can automatically push things like this without selecting the path. It's done automatically. We also have a warping grid where you can actually even select several dots at the same time, just like several things simultaneously. Oh, I dropped them. And keep the selection, please. Oh yeah, that's because I'm changing it. Yeah. Off we go. Oh, why you're not anymore? Yeah, there we go. What can I say as well? Yeah, and also something really interesting, the fact we also have the possibility to so when you draw something, you also have the possibility to then use a float fill tool that will automatically detect the areas to be colored like this. And obviously, if you decide to change, to adapt a little bit the stroke like this, the color will follow like this. So that's really useful. And the same if you decide to change a stroke. For instance, if I decide to change this one, it's going to adapt automatically. So this feature, at the moment, the very moment, the beta version, for the ones who already have an access to the beta version, they don't have this feature in the animation assets. But that's really a matter of, I would say, a few weeks before you finally have it in the animation. And yeah, sorry, I had my face on the tools so you couldn't see them. Let me see you the tools right there, so it's not mysterious now. Yep. If I also open something else, like if I open these flowers that were drawn previously, I also have the possibility to use a palette. And the palette is a specific asset that was created by Galendil, actually. And this palette will be really useful to have indexed colors, so you can easily colorize areas like this and say, there. Like this. And what's interesting also is the fact that you can even create different sets of colors, so you can have different nuances depending on if you want, I don't know, something, a set for the daylight, a set for the dawn, for the night. Really, it's up to you. And okay, so here at the moment, as I said, it's still just in the texture editor. It's not yet into the animation, but as I said, it's coming very, very soon. Okay, and something also that is really nice is the fact that all the tools to draw directly on 3D shapes also have been improved a lot. So if I, for instance, here, if I select this rock, if some of you are following me on LinkedIn, you've probably seen what I'm about to show you. But yeah, let's, what is it? It's a raster-based tool. So here I have the possibility again to select and to draw on different shapes, and all the problem we had were fixed by Galendil. So when you paint on a complex mesh, you won't have the tiny stroke like this, like we used to have when you were touching two different areas from the UV, you know. So that was fixed, and that's really cool. So it works whatever the tool you use, can be the pen brush, can be, again, I can take in this one, for instance, where like this. So that's totally possible. And again, you can play, obviously, with all the different I don't know, multiply with the different blending modes, can play with the opacity of the layer and everything. That's totally possible. And so if you've seen already the video on LinkedIn, you won't be surprised, but we also have the possibility to draw vectors directly on 3D shapes. So I have the possibility to do this and say, for instance, I would like my brush to be edited like this. And oh, it's very transparent. Yeah, like this. And again, you can play with thickness, you can change, you can edit the curve of the tool. You can delete dots as well if you don't want them. You can also draw shapes. I forgot to show this, but you also have the possibility to change the shapes, draw ellipses, draw rectangle, draw lines. Very simple, but still interesting to show that it's a possibility as well. And obviously, something that is really cool is the fact that you can pan the vector across the mesh. So if you need to adjust it a little bit, that is much more easier than before. Which is nice because if you've already used or plugins on Unreal Engine, so Iliad and Epos, you know that, for instance, one of the big issues we had with Epos is the fact that you could only use, when you were drawing using Iliad, it was just raster-based. So doing storyboards in a 3D context could be sometimes quite frustrating because you couldn't really change the posing of the character in the camera. So, for instance, if I say I create a storyboard, like this. Here is my sequencer. I'm going to create a new shot, then create a new camera like this. So just in case, for the ones who didn't know this feature, so this feature is made to help you creating 2D storyboards in the 3D context. And in Odyssey, it's been improved. First of all, because, for instance, it is compatible now with level sequences, which was not exactly the case in Epos in Unreal Engine, but here in Odyssey, it's working really well. You can actually have a storyboard, a 2D storyboard, at the same as a level sequence, and you can move from an environment to another one very easily. So that's really cool. And as I said, since we have Iliad, we have the possibility to say, I would like to paint not in raster, but as a vector. So I can draw a character. If I should really, yep, there we go. Oh, sorry. There, okay. So I'm going to draw some character. And if I don't like the posing, I can say, okay, I actually need the character to be moved a little bit, to be adjusted, depending on the framing I want to have on this specific shot, right? I'm wondering if you have any questions, just maybe feel free to, oh, hi, we have Elysian here, so he's another developer from the crew. Yeah, I almost have all the crew here. That's nice. So, okay. So here, yeah, we have the storyboard. And just in case, if you didn't know how Epos works, if you've never heard or never used Epos, so I can show you how it works in Odyssey. So the idea is you just create additional keyframes, and I can actually get rid of the grid like this. And then the idea is here you have the possibility to draw different keyframes, key images for your storyboard. So I'm going to, and here I think I can put my camera, so if I need to explain something, it will be much easier for me. Okay, so the idea is here I have the possibility to draw again, select like this, and do another character like this. So it's painted in black, but that's okay. And we can see here the character is moving like this. Contrary to the 2D animation assets, Here I have the possibility to use a light table, because contrary to the 2D animation asset, here we're not using animation assets, we're using a bunch of textures. So that's why I can paint using vector, and that's why I can use the light table, because here this whole mechanism has been done in Odyssey, in epos. So that's how you can easily change that. And again, since it's here a vector tool, I have the possibility to adjust the position of the character like this. And yeah, that's it. So the idea, also something you have to know about epos is its ability to really place characters in the environment, because by default, if I stop displaying the camera like this, can see here the characters are actually floating in the air. You see, the character could be actually placed more here by the tree, for instance. And we have here this feature which will allow me to easily move the plane further from the camera, which is invisible right now, but I can say I would like to display the camera. So here is the camera. And the idea is to move like this the plane, so it can be placed more specifically into the environment, but in the eye of the camera. It's not changing anything. The fact I'm changing here the distance doesn't affect the ratio of the camera, of the plane, because the plane always keep the same ratio to the camera view. And what could I say? I also have the possibility, if I want to, I also have the possibility to make camera moves. So again, I'm going to pilot the camera and I'm going to move the plane like this. And by default, the plane tracks the camera move. Sometimes it can be useful, sometimes it is not. So in this situation, if I want, for instance, my character to remain at the same place and not move along with the camera, I have the possibility to say I would like to detach the plane from the camera. You can see actually here in the outliner, so this is it's kind of a layer stack for Unreal Engine, where you have the list of any elements, any actor within the 3D environment. And here we can see we have the plane, we have the camera, and I can actually say I would like this plane not to be attached to the camera, this camera. So I have a possibility to say, okay, I don't want it to be attached, so I need to detach the plane from the camera like this. And then, even if we still have a camera move, the plane remain at the same spot. Like this. And you can have both. I mean, you can have a plane with a character that remains at the same spot, and you can have a plane that is still attached to the camera. So if here I decide to create a second plane like this, here we can see I can define the plane, the name of the plane. I can choose the safe margin. So for instance, if you need the plane to be larger than the camera view, so you have the camera view like this, and you would like the plane to be a little bigger, so just in case you need extra margin, just in case, so you have the possibility to change that. You can even change the relative scaling. So for instance, you can have a camera with a 16:9 ratio, but have a plane in a 4/3 ratio. That's a possibility. For instance, for people who do webtoons, they can have one camera with a 16:9 ratio, but have a very long, very vertical plane, so they can later move the camera on the plane. That's a possibility. Then comes the texture, because the texture in Unreal Engine by default is defined in pixel, and we can only change the height because the width is automatically calculated depending the ratio of the camera. So here in this case, since it's 16:9 ratio, it's going to be 1920 pixels, 1920 pixels. Okay, let's create a new plane. Here's my new plane. like this. And you can see it's a little whiter than before. It's because I have by default here a background, very, very transparent, but yet it still exists. And that's why the more you add plans, the more it gets blurry or something, blurrier or something like this. So you can disable the background like this, and then you have the exact color from the background. And at this point, I can say, okay, maybe I would like to paint like a bird. It's gonna be a raster, because you can actually have both. I mean, a raster images and vector images as well. And here, this plane is still attached to the camera, so I can, since we still have the camera move, you can see the plane is still attached to the camera move like this. And then we can go even further. I mean, I can still add keys, transform keys to one of these planes, because I would like them to be animated in time. In this situation, I will go within the plane like this. And for the ones who are more used to Unreal Engine, you will see actually how looks the sequencer with all the transform key, all the possibility you have. So for instance, I can say I would like the plane with the bird, this one for instance, to still track the camera move, but yet at a moment to go out to, leave the frame of the camera. You see, like this. So here the camera move stops, and I would like the plane to keep going actually. So I'm going to add a transform key like this. So far it's great. And then I would like the plane to move a little bit, and say I would like it to move like this, and add a key. No, I didn't add the key at the right spot, sorry. There. Okay, there we go. So again, I say transform key right here, move a little bit, and yeah, create the key. So you see it's still attached to the camera, and then even if the camera stops, the bird still move along, and I can decide to move a little more so it really gets out of the frame like this. And so the idea is really how you can build step by step 2D, 3D storyboards that can be really, really, really advanced, just like the things our former colleague Antoine Lantin did. And if you haven't seen the videos yet, I would advise you to watch them because they are really awesome. Scope. Yeah, these ones were they. Okay, I would advise you to watch this one and to watch. Actually, there is a video right there too. So this one and this one, obviously, these two are really wonderful and shows really well what you can do with the power of Unreal Engine and the power of Praxinos as well. All right. I said so many things. I don't know if you guys have any questions, maybe, because after all, I've been talking a lot and I'm kind of thirsty right now. Do you have any questions, maybe? I see, Paul, you have questions. What was the question? Do we have shortcuts for next and pref keys? In epos, yes, we have. You have the possibility to say, to define all these keys right there into the editor preferences. I must say that for the animation, 2D animation, even for drawing in general, we really have to make a make a pass. I don't know if it's correct in English. We really have to think again all the shortcuts because with all the vector-based tools, with all the animation tools and everything. There are many shortcuts that have to be added. But for epos, you have the possibility to say, I think it's next keys and where is it? Next epos. Well, yeah, go to the next drawing, go to the next shot, and then if you, instead of next, if you say prev, you're gonna see the prev drawing, prev shot, and it's up to you to assign the shortcut of your choice. What are the options for exporting? That's a clever question. So at the moment, everything related to the 2D animation, you don't really have exports right now. Everything has to be done through the level sequence. So for instance, if we have a storyboard and we want to export it as an image sequence, we have everything right there to be chosen. So, okay, it's still visible. So we have the classical feature from Unreal Engine, the movie render queue and the movie scene capture. And with epos and with Odyssey, we have a storyboard render queue and we have a storyboard export that is more advanced than the one you have in epos as a plugin. Because in this version, you will have features like the possibility to export in PDF. So when you have many different shots, it's really cool because you can add camera moves, you can add notes, because I forgot to show you, but you also have the possibility to write notes directly into a post like this. So where's my notes? No, I created a plane. I'm stupid. Here's my note. Yeah. So here you have a note, and this note can be displayed on the display like this. And these notes can be then exported as a PDF when you export the PDF like this. So if I do this, we're gonna see, the notes right there. And if you want to export more like an image sequence or a movie, then you're gonna use the storyboard render queue right there. And you have this tiny panel that doesn't exist natively in Unreal Engine, something that was created by our colleague Mike. And that's what will allow you to choose movie pipeline, master config, which are tools to define the configuration of your export. And you have two additional MPMC we have created. There is the one that uses the plugin FFmpeg that needs to be installed. It is installed actually, but since I have to do many things with Odyssey, you still have to install it. It will be explained in the guide. It's already explained in the guide for epos, and the explanation is the same for Odyssey. And then you have the storyboard sequence like this. That is, actually, when you open it, it opens the movie render queue exactly the same as the one you have in Unreal Engine, because that's the one from Unreal Engine, obviously. And then you will have the settings where you can actually change parameters, like for instance, do you want to export PNG sequences or JPEG sequences? Do you want a deferred rendering, or do you like an unlit rendering? Do you want videos? Well, it's exactly the same as Unreal Engine. So with the advantage and the specification of Unreal Engine when you export images, I would say. I'll let Iliad answer this. What was the question? What is the export format? So it depends. It can be JPEG, PNG, it can be... it's Avid. The codec is Avid, and it exports some Word file format named MXF. Or you also have the Move export file format. But, and I quote Unreal Engine documentation, Unreal Engine and Odyssey are not made for the very final rendering. It's still better to edit the very final video in an editing video. So I would advise you to export image sequences and then turn these image sequences into a video. You can still go for the Move, the Apple codec, or the AVI codec. But I would say the result is not as accurate as what you would have with an actual editing software. I mean, at the moment, maybe later, I don't know if Epic Games plan to improve this part, but at the moment, and I quote their documentation, it's still better to actually do the final job on an actual editing software. Something else as well, at the moment for the textures, not for the animation. As I said, for the animation, at the moment we have no export, simple export option where we just make like a right click and export into something. But for the textures, we do have this kind of feature. So you have the possibility to say, I would like to make a right click and say iliad option and say, I would like to export the texture. And then you have PNG, bitmap, TGA, and JPEG. And I think the idea would be to do something probably say, I don't know for the animation what we can do, because it's more complex since we have many frames at the same time. For the texture, it's simple because you just have a flattened result. But for the animation, yeah, that's typically the kind of things that must be added into the roadmap. So let me see the question. Would we be able to bring in a 2D model sheet of the character to position it in 3D to get a proper size reference and also have a flat version as visual reference for the design? That's an interesting question. At the moment, we don't exactly have a library reference where you can have an image displayed like this and use it as a reference. But what you could do in this situation would be to import the image as a texture 2D and make a creator mesh, a material, and then drag and drop it into the environment. But I must say that doing all these steps by hand is not very easy for a beginner, and probably you could think of a system to make that a little more easily. That's an interesting question, actually. Thanks, Grant or Harris, I don't know what your first name is. Epos is for Storyboard, but the way I see it's also a really good option for Storyboard as well. It's actually, yeah, it's for Storyboard, definitely. And you can import PSD sequence with layers. Well, you could do it in Unreal Engine 5.0, and there were a few changes in Unreal Engine which prevented us now to have this sequence, the structure of the PSD layers. So that's annoying, because that was something that used to work and that doesn't because of a few changes that happened in Unreal Engine. So we have to do this all over again. But yeah, it used to work, and we have to do it all over again. Yeah. Thank you, Interchange. So even though it's a standalone, do still have access to Unreal lighting, Atmos, assets? Exactly. Yes. Everything that is really all the basic things that you need to use Unreal Engine for 3D context still exists. So all the lightings, all the shapes, all the camera, you can exactly have the same thing. You can see the lights, you have the shapes, you have the visual effects, you can still do post-process volumes. Everything still exists, and that's really something we wanted to keep in Odyssey, because it has really the good advantage of Unreal Engine. Can you change the lighting here in Odyssey? Yes, I can. To be honest, I'm really not good at lighting stuff. So be nice. But I'm gonna show you. I can actually use a pointing light like this. And so I can change the color of the light. So all this stuff still exists. And so I can also change the directional light, change the atmosphere. I can do post-process volumes. Everything works. Yeah. Is the beta signing up still running? Yes, because I haven't disabled it, so you can still apply and ask to be a beta tester. That's fine. Curious, is it possible to render in Unreal a 360 video without losing the drawings? Curious, is it possible to render in Unreal Engine a 360 video without losing the drawing? Actually, I really don't know. I'm thinking of, I really don't know, to be honest with you. I know the camera in Unreal Engine is very versatile. You can do really many things, but there are two things. There's at least one thing they're poor at is having fisheye rendering, And so I'm not quite sure you can actually render a 360 video. But maybe, actually, I really don't know. That's something... maybe there is a plugin for it, yeah. That really, I don't know. Sorry. Any other questions, or actually, you know, that's okay. Even if you don't have any questions, as I said, we still have a Discord server. Really, feel free to join in to ask any question. That's really the purpose of the Discord server. We're very activated, except on weekends, because we need to rest a little bit. But yeah, and where the beta link sign up? Can someone send the link, or can I? It's actually praxinos.carp/Odyssey. And Odyssey, and you just have to add the HTTPS in front of it. Sorry. Do you have a timeline for roadmap features? In the Discord server, not an exact roadmap. It's something I've recently created just to start feeding the stuff. Oops, sorry, what I'm doing. Here it is. The idea is to, into this server, to add all the different features we have in mind, and we would like to have your opinion on it. We have another private roadmap for us, but a public roadmap, I think it would be here on the Discord server, and so you can actually vote for features, or enter a thread and say, oh yeah, I would really like to have a Mac version, or oh yeah, shift interest is really great, I would like to see this or that feature. And if you would like to see a feature, something that is not into the roadmap, just create a thread here into Help in English if you're an English speaker, or a French, or in Japanese if you want to, and explain what you like, what's the something you think would be a great idea, and if you like the idea, it will be placed then into the roadmap. I'm seeing and reading the feedback. With Odyssey being a standalone and will interfere with the layouts and settings I already have. No, not at all. It's really a whole different installation. So just for you to see, I have here into my Praxinos hard drive, I have my Odyssey installers and I have my Unreal Engine installers. Everything is split. It's a whole different installation, so, and all different preferences. Yeah, thanks, Thomas. Thanks, the Allen deal. Can we see more on the animation sequence and how to implement it in the level? Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, sure, no problem. Typically, that's the kind of thing that also could be improved on our side. And I'm going to explain it. Yeah, load the sequencer. All right. So I will use these. There is two ways to add an animation into the animation into the level. So either so here you can't see it because it's hidden by my face, but I have this animation with a crane, also done by Antoine Antin, and I have a possibility to drag and drop these into the 3D environment like this. And it turns it into a media plate, which is a feature that was recently brought into Unreal Engine, and which is really cool because it will help me to quickly play the animation like this. But on our side, there's still a few things to change, because for some reason it flickers a little bit the colors. I don't really know why, but I hope it's not something really complicated to change. Anyway, this feature is nice for animation that is in loop, like a flame in a torch, something like this. That's cool because, as you can see, the animation is still in loop. That's all. If you want to have more control on the animation, then it's going to be a little more complex. And I think there's something we should think of to make this process easier. Just like we made the process the storyboarding process easier thanks to the module epos. But so, how does it work? First of all, I have to create a level sequence. So I'm going to create a level sequence like this. So it will be ls demo like this. Okay, save. Then it opens the level sequence. I'm going to create a shape. I'm going to create a shape, can be a plane, should be placed like this. And that's the tricky part, because planes are always oriented to the floor and not like a panel in front of your eyes. That's typically the kind of things that are not very useful in this situation, but yeah. So I'm doing this like this, so it would be in front of my very eyes. And with the, so I'm going to hide my face. Yeah, so here with the animation of the plane, I will have first to create two things. I will have to create something named the media texture. Where is the media texture? It's here, media and texture right there, which is empty by default. That's normal. And then I will have to create from it, I'm going to create a new material like this. And this material will be placed here, which is black by default, because at the moment, the media texture of this image is not an image I can edit. I cannot paint on this image. It's something from Unreal Engine, where that whose the purpose is to make the link between a media and a level sequence. So here we are. We have the mesh, we have the material, we have the media texture, and now we have just to drag and drop the animation of the crane here into the level sequence, make a right click, properties, and then assign the media texture we've just created. So I'm going to select it, properties, and apply it right there. Obviously, it didn't turn it into the right way, like this. Yeah. And you can see we still have a black background, because by default it's an opaque material. So I'm going to change the material to make it translucent. So you see, I really agree, if you're a beginner with Unreal Engine, that's really not something you would think of naturally. That's way too complicated, and I think we should, on our side at Praxinos, we should do something to make these steps much easier to understand. And so I have to apply the change, and there we go. I have here the animation of the crane that is flapping its wings. And then, since we're working here on the level sequence, I have the possibility then to add elements like keys to move the animation, because here is just flapping like this. But let's not forget the animation is applied on the physical object that is a static mesh right here into the outliner. So I can drag and drop it into the level sequence like this, and say, since we have a transform, I have the possibility now to create a key for this plane like this, and then create another key like this there, and then that's what's happening. So that's actually how you can mix 2D and 3D into Odyssey. And if I show you another example, because here we can see I already have two cranes flying here, and we have this tiny fox right there, and actually I have made a scene where both are already together through the eye of the camera. So I have a camera move on the tiny fox, and then we'll see the cranes like this. And then we even move to a storyboard. So for the ones who are in new epos and knew it was not really possible to combine both, here we have the possibility to move from from a level sequence to a storyboard like this without crashes, which is not the case with epos. Here we can. And you will notice, by the way, that here the animation of the crane is offset. We have it's obviously twice the same animation, but there is an offset so they don't flap the wings exactly at the same time. Here we can see all the details right there. We can see there is a tiny offset between both sequences, and that's why actually here into the animation of the crane we have 2 media texture and 2 material, even though we have only 1 animation. Can you fix the layer animation front of the camera? Right now, not exactly. It only works when you do this through epos, through the Storyboard plugin, because by default, when you create the camera, it creates a plane, and the plane is in front of the camera. So actually, in the end, yeah, when we will fix a tiny issue that prevents us to use media textures in a storyboard sequence, it will be possible to immediately have both the camera, the plane, and then instead of having a texture, we will have an animation. That's a possibility. It will be a possibility in the very near future. I'm thirsty. And I can even show off with my Unreal Engine butter. Okay, do you have any questions? Any other questions, sorry. Well, no other questions, so looks like we're done, guys. Thank you very much for following this very first demo on Odyssey. As I said, really feel free to join our Discord server. Feel free to. Do you need a very powerful computer, Pascal? I would say it really depends on how complicated your scene is. Since we're based on Unreal Engine, it still require quite a good computer. For instance, I would say, what can we say? For instance, I had a MacBook Pro from late 2018. That's the very limit for this computer to run Unreal Engine 5. Or if I do use it, I work in a very basic environment. For instance, no lighting. I will only work in an unlit environment like this, so there's no shadows and stuff like this. I would avoid complex environment because here, for instance, we have grass moving in the wind and stuff like this. This is typically the kind of things I wouldn't have. I would advise you to have if you have a poor computer. And yeah, there are many tiny tips to lower the resources from your computer because of Unreal Engine. I mean, because of Odyssey and because of the power it requires and the resource it requires. But yeah, the more powerful the computer is, and the better the experience will be with Odyssey and with Unreal Engine in general. Quite especially, sorry, maybe you spoke about it at the beginning, but what's the difference between Odyssey and epos? Just wondering. Okay, no, don't worry. So epos and Iliad are 2 plugins that were proof of concept for Odyssey. And Odyssey is like the original purpose of Praxinos, making a 2D animation software with Unreal Engine, and Iliad and epos were just tiny steps to achieve Odyssey. And basically, the idea at the moment, since we have a very small crew, for Iliad and epos, we're just doing maintenance on Unreal Engine, so we will update them both to the next version of Unreal Engine, but we won't develop new features anymore. We will just develop enough to keep the compatibility between Odyssey and the plugins, and that's all. No more things, actually. And so Odyssey is a very more advanced version of epos, since it's a whole standalone software with its own with more features, where you can do 2D animation, where you have vector-based tools, and much more other things that are plain in our roadmap. And how well should you know Unreal Engine before using it? Well, the idea is actually you don't have to understand Unreal Engine, because the idea is when you start Odyssey for the first time, if you pick a template to draw or to make 2D animation without 3D, you will basically have an interface where you just have a 2D interface, and that's all. So you could basically use Odyssey without knowing anything about Unreal Engine. That's really our main purpose. Having Unreal Engine under the hood is the really big advantage if you want to make 2D and 3D together, or if in productions for a studio, for instance, there is a need to combine 2D with 3D, and more specifically 3D real-time animation. But the idea is really to allow beginners and 2D animators to use this software even though they know nothing about Unreal Engine. And I really hope we're gonna achieve this goal. When I used iliad plugin flipbook feature in Unreal Engine before, I was able to use trigger in the level sequence for the flipbook animation, but it didn't trigger at the frame I wanted to. Oh, probably, I don't know. Sorry. Cool, merci beaucoup pour la réponse. Thank you. Thank you, Vinny. Thank you very much. So what can I do if I want to create an animation which doesn't loop? Oh yeah, that's what I explained with the whole level sequence. So you will have to watch back the explanation on YouTube, because yeah, it's everything I've shown right there with the level sequence. Combining animation and media texture and everything. And okay. So thank you very much, guys, for all your questions and for your interest. I really didn't expect you to be that numerous, so that's really a good surprise for me. Thank you very much. Thank you for the team, because even if I'm quite the face of the company, there is many people. There are 7 other people behind that are more discreet, and they're actually the true magicians that make all those things possible. So you can thank all my colleagues for the incredible work they do. So thank you all, thank you everyone, and see you later on Discord and or on the social media and everything. So thank you. Have a good day, have a good night, have a good weekend. Bye!